That's my other daughter, Hannah. That's my daughter, Kate. That's my wife back there. I'm up here. For those of you who don't know us, I'm the third one in the line from George and Ruby. Okay, I'm getting quiet.
The mics are not on up there yet. Yes. Okay. I want you to test out.
Okay, am I being picked up now? You can't tell.
Okay, Chris says yes, Justin says yes. Justin, you hear? Ask Justin.
Justin, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, sorry, Justin. Dustin.
Yeah, sorry, Dustin.
Okay, we're good to go. Everybody out in Neverland are going to be quiet for a little bit. We've got a fairly long service that we need to get through. And so let me start. I get my notes up and just threw the camera off. Am I still good? Okay. As I said, I'm Corey Leonhard, third in line. Scott, sitting over here, for those of you who don't know him, is my older brother and Woody's first younger brother. I'm third. Todd, time out.
Yes, let's let everybody get in and get set down. We don't have a lot of excess noise.
Okay. You got enough chairs out? Okay. Fourth child was Todd, who died at the age of 2. Fifth child is Trudy. There she is. Trudy. Sixth child is Lisa over here. We're a close-knit family all over the place. And number next, yeah, I know, 7 is Dustin, who is up there. And he is, where is he? Seattle now?
Yeah, all over the place.
All over the place. I know. That's why I had to ask. And then, of course, Brent, who is our lawyer of the family and keeps us out of jail, right back here. Those are the main ones. So are we good to go for me to start? Okay. We want to thank you all for coming and participating in this celebration of life of my oldest brother. In October 20th, 1951, there was a 3rd grade teacher giving birth to her firstborn. Being a 3rd grade teacher, she thought it'd be cute to have her class name the kid. That's where Gregory Forrest came in, with the nickname Woody, like the woodpecker. I don't know why Dad accepted it, but he did. And a couple of years later, since none of us were around, we don't have memories of those first couple of years, Scott popped out. And then a couple of years later, I popped out. I'd like to say that's where my memory begins, but really it's a couple of years later. But we were a close-knit family. And Dad, when Woody was born, was a chemist, making sure that chemical paints had consistent color across batches. He left that job to join an organization I suspect most of you have heard of, became a professional Boy Scout. And that's where a lot of our love for nature came from. We camped a lot. We did a lot of things outdoors. Of course, we were all scouts. And some of the interesting things that happened as a kid, that I remember, probably the funniest, Scott should too, was Woody's first job. He was in probably 6th grade or 7th grade, and Dad decided it was okay for him to deliver papers. But we lived in Southern California, and the paper route wasn't a short one. So Dad agreed to let Woody and Scott, sit on the tailgate of our station wagon and throw papers out onto the yard. Woody had the left-hand throw, Scott had the right-hand throw. Scott did okay for the first couple. Then Woody did his first one, and I heard a thump. I looked back and I saw Woody rolling back away from the car. Scott laughing too hard to say anything. So I told Dad to stop. But that's how Woody failed at his very first job. And Nancy, you had some comments? If you want to come on up here, and we got plenty of people to point you left or right if you're off camera.
So I am Scott's wife, Nancy, and we have 4 daughters. So Christina, Lindsay, and Megan are here, and Nicole's up there. And one of our 9 grandchildren is here, Madeline. So I met Scott when I was 17 on the 5th floor of Higginson Hall at Western Washington University. And then life took us in different directions. And in 1974 brought us back to the same place. And that's when we started dating. So I think I met Woody in 1975. So I've known him for 50 years, but always as Scott's big brother. So Scott and Woody are 16 months apart in age. So they really grew up together in those early years as buddies, doing a lot of different things. So Scott gave me the privilege today of sharing a couple stories. So he told me that, and I'll just read his words, from our earliest days in California, it was clear that Woody liked people, and he was always creative. I recall when I was 6 and Woody was 8 years old, we were discussing things we could be doing. Together, we came up with the idea of having a carnival in the front yard. We would put out a lot of crystal items, cut glass ashtrays, plates, and so on the lawn, and kids would pitch dimes from behind a rope to land on something and win it. Without delineating tasks, I set about getting the crystal items and the rope, and Woody put together promotional materials and a plan for how to attract customers. Even without talking, that was the split. Woody would handle everything having to do with people, and I would make the rest of the non-people things happen. We were both very happy with our unassigned and complementary role in life. His promotional smarts kicked in. He said he would get the youngest kids to go first, and I should make sure each of them won some big flashy item. And then we would provide cookies near the waiting area in front so all the older kids could see the little ones win big prizes. Woody's people skills had a whole neighborhood of kids screaming to get in and win. I would have never thought of it. At the end of the day, Woody and I were the wealthiest 2 kids in Orange County. Maybe it is a leadership quality, but Woody was always able to find ways of making everyone happy, which made him happy too. And I was lucky to be the younger brother wanting to make things work. Today, it is gratifying to see Woody's creativity and originality continuing in Justin and Andy. Both are incredibly smart, creative, and very likable. So from at least the age of 8, Woody really enjoyed interacting with people. He liked talking with them, bouncing ideas around, winning the award, getting the recognition, the prize. And so it is not surprising that he was able to combine with the growing personal computer movement. And then I have heard from several people how Woody strongly influenced them. And so I will share a story about a small thing he did that basically redirected my whole entire professional life. So this is from a little bit later. In the days when we were college students, there were no cell phones, no internet, no email, just what is now called a landline and US mail. Woody would call me fairly often, discuss how things were going. The last quarter of my junior year, I was talking about how my math major was going. He said, if you want to get a job when you graduate, take a class in a subject called computer science. So I looked around and did indeed find a couple of computer science classes, which I took my senior year. The faculty were really excited to have a smart math guy take their computer science classes. Only because Woody had made that one comment, I graduated with a degree in math computer science and went on to graduate school in operations research at Stanford and used that to become extremely successful. Again, only his one remark changed my professional life. I have known Woody longer than I've known anyone else. He was with me when the first man went into space, when the first man landed on the moon. He tucked under a desk at school, as I did when the Cuban Missile Crisis was going. We lived through economic good times and hard times, saw the many changes technology caused, watched the nation grow from a time when outer Los Angeles was lima bean fields, orange groves, and mesquite desert to where we are today. He was with me when our younger brother Todd passed away, just days short of 2 years old, from a progressive neurodegenerative condition that emerged when he was young, 1. I don't know how it is that in a multi-billion-year-old universe, Woody happened for just a few short years to be my big brother, and that we had the wonderful parents we had, but I am extremely grateful and will miss him dearly. Thanks.
While we grew up in California, younger years, we used to go camping a lot. And as anyone who knows Woody, he could be pig-headed at times. The 3 of us went hiking to Balancing Rock, got permission from the parents, went up the trail, got off the trail, found our way to Balancing Rock going through the undergrowth. And then it came a time when Scott, Woody, and I had to figure out how to get back to camp. And unfortunately, there were 2 trails heading out from Balancing Rock. Woody was adamant which way he wanted to go. I was adamant which way I wanted to go, which didn't agree with his way. And finally, I got fed up with Woody and started walking my way. Woody got scared he was going to lose his little brother, so he followed. I forget where Scott fell in the middle of that, but the 3 of us ended up getting back to camp without a problem. The funny thing is, it didn't matter which trail we took. They both went back to camp. So those are some of our California years. I mean, I could go on with tobogganing up at Big Bear Lake. First time we ever saw a 10-foot high snowblower. Things along those lines. We went down to the beach. We went down to Mexico, bought those huge, ridiculous sombreros that hurt your neck. And those pictures were on the screen earlier. If you want to go back and look at the pictures, you can log into the YouTube channel that we're broadcasting over, and there is a set copy there, correct? Okay, there's a copy there that'll remain there. So in a couple of weeks, if you want to go back and look at the pictures, feel free to do so. Once we got to a certain point, our backyard was fenced in by cinder block. And as a kid, it seemed like it was 10 feet high. But we had a shed over to the side. It wasn't really a shed because 3 of the walls only went half high, but it had a roof. And from that roof, how close we were, we could watch Disneyland fireworks on the weekends during the summer. And if we were good, we were allowed to go up there and watch them. I always blamed Woody when we couldn't go up and watch it. The other thing is we could watch Minuteman missiles firing from the Marine base, El Toro Marine Base. And we got to go and watch those sitting on our ship, which in the middle of a missile crisis, you know, it's a wonderful thing to watch. But eventually, Dad outgrew his position in Orange County with the Scouts and transferred to Central Washington State, a town called Yakima, which if you read your apples and a lot of other produce, you'll find Yakima or Wenatchee on the label. We used to go out and actually pick fruit during the summer. And that was an interesting experience because we actually picked alongside the other pickers, some of whom were illegal immigrants who had a great deal going for the farmers because the farmers could always find pickers. But what they do is they come in over the California border and follow the produce on up to Washington State. And when they got done with the apples in Washington State, they'd turn themselves in and get a free trip back to Mexico. So it worked out for everybody. Unfortunately, that's changed. The other thing that happened when we moved north, I was in second grade. Woody was in 7th or 8th, I forget which, 7th, 8th. And in where we were, it's called Terrace Heights, a suburb of a small town called Yakima. And there was another town next door called Moxie, and we were in the Moxie School District. Moxie is famous as the hop capital of the world. And I don't think that's when Woody started loving beer, but beer started showing up later in his life. So unfortunately, we were seen as the smart-ass kids from California, which was not a welcome group. But we managed through it. The high school thought they had Woody nailed and suspended him for long hair. We all had long hair at that point. In California, we had blonde buzz cuts. But by the time we got up there, long hair was the thing. My dad took Woody to the school board meeting after reading the dress code, which is what they were using to enforce the suspension. And there was some discussion back and forth among the board members. Turns out our family was from the Yakima Valley and Ellensburg, and through there, our family provided the railroad ties for the railroad that went through and over the mountains. So my dad knew the names of a lot of people in Moxie School District and started talking about the riffraff down by the river. 2 of the board members were related to. Then he turned around and instead of attacking that particular thing where you're not allowed to have, boys aren't allowed to have hair below their neckline. Instead, he said he wanted every single freshman boy suspended because of the dress code. And of course, the dress board sitting there saying, what are you talking about? He pointed them to a line in the dress code that said every Friday, every freshman had to wear a beanie cap in the dress code. Well, needless to say, his suspension got reversed. And he went on to be recruited by Whitman College in a wonderful town called Walla Walla, Washington. If you want to make your face weird, say Walla Walla, Washington. But even then, he kept track of his siblings. And when I was a junior, going up to be a senior, a couple of days before summer break, I get a call from Woody. And he says, call this professor. I say, okay. So I called the professor. And the professor invited me to a 2-week National Science Foundation program at Whitman College. Now, I was applying late. I was applying over the phone. The session started in a week and a half. And I hadn't taken the entrance exam. So the professor said, okay, we can take care of that right now. What's 1 + 1? Anybody? Anybody? I said 2. Said, okay, you passed the entrance exam. So I got to spend 2 weeks, paid for by the National Science Foundation, in a summer program on computers. And we're talking back in 1973. So just like with Scott, he saw the value of computers coming down the pike. Of course, I was belligerent. I went to the University of Washington looking to get my nuclear physics degree. But there it got reinforced. The head of the nuclear plant on campus got a hold of me. Someone want to get the door open, please? And that professor called me into his office and he said that, you know, you're smart enough to be a nuclear physicist. No, he said, you're good enough to be a nuclear physicist, you're smart enough not to be. And I asked him, what do you mean? He said, there's not going to be another nuclear plant built in this country for 30 years. He missed it by 2 years. The Georgia plant opened up 32 years after that discussion. And he handed me a professor's name. He said, talk to Dr. Shaw. So I went there. And sure enough, it was the undergraduate program at the University of Washington, which I switched my major. And just like Woody, ended up getting my computer science degree. So he had a lot of foresight, or just dumb luck, I'm not sure which, to actually see the future of computers. But then he went to the University of Colorado at Boulder to get his advanced degree. I forget what it was, a PhD in computer science. Okay, so he saw it too, and he went into that, moved to Boulder, Colorado, just outside of Denver. And eventually, and I've got more on Boulder, but eventually he'll just say, oh, I've got my dissertation to go. That's good enough. So he left school without completing his dissertation, which is why he has the degree he got instead of a PhD. So while in Washington, he actually met Linda, I believe. Some of this may be wrong. Yeah. But he met Linda, got married, and Linda, being his first wife, is also the mother of Justin, who's joining us from Thailand. It was a rather interesting marriage. Everybody living up in Washington State, he decides to get married in Catalina Island, which is just off the coast of Los Angeles. So we get there, they're already on the island. Some of us are trying to get on the last ferry over that day. And it's pulling away. Dad's yelling at me to grab Brent and throw him onto the ship so that we can claim they were kidnapping and bring the ship back. But I don't know how Dad did it, but they managed to bring the ship back without me having to throw Brent onto the ship. So they got married, and then Woody went to Colorado, graduated, and I'm getting out of order here, pardon me. Brent, did you want to say anything about this? Because the only thing.
Very vague memories of it.
Yeah, except someone yelling to throw you on the ship.
I do not remember being threatened to be thrown.
Okay. From Colorado, I'm sorry.
Trudy remember.
I remember.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was, deers in the headlight. You don't want me to do what with my brother? And he wasn't white. So anyways, Woody ended up leaving Colorado and going to Saudi Arabia with Linda, which I thought was rather strange. I have no idea how they got recruited. I don't know if anyone else does here or not. But it was interesting because when he moved over there, the two of them became world travelers. And as world travelers, Linda took an interest in orphan kids. Woody took it up too. And as such, Woody also happened to be an amateur photographer who was pretty good. He happened to be in Tibet and took a picture of a rainbow emanating from a temple. Somehow a copy of that picture made it to the Dalai Lama. And the people with the Dalai Lama put together Woody and Linda, the work with the orphans, the fact that they had actually made a foundation to help orphans in Tibet, and invite them for a visit. So Woody and Linda actually got a chance to see the Dalai Lama and talk to him for a couple of hours, simply through his generosity and his concern, and probably a little luck with the photograph. And then they went on and continued. They had someone called Justin when they moved back to Colorado. I'm getting this way out of track. Yeah, that's right. When they moved back to Colorado, he left Aramco. One thing that did happen in Aramco that he did tell me about was that at one point he held a position with the computer department. He was fairly high ranked. He was one person of three in the world who had possessions of the operating system key. Now, Aramco is the world's biggest oil company. They have more money going through their computer systems than most countries. They also have all the oil resources that they control going through. So the way they set up the operating system to avoid hacking was they had 3 physical keys, one in Houston, one in The Hague, and one in Saudi Arabia. As soon as he was given the responsibility of that key, he started having all sorts of people requesting to be his friend, take him out to dinner. You know, let's go over here and do that. And he recognized some of the accents as being Russian, a couple of them American, British, German. All of them were suspected spies. So 3 weeks of having this responsibility, he immediately delegated it to someone else. But having that influence, when he finally decided to leave Saudi Arabia and move back to the States, and they moved to the mountains of Colorado over Boulder, or over Denver, actually. If you sat in his hot tub and twisted the right way, you could see the lights of Denver. That experience got him thinking of writing. But his writing was spy novels. He actually wrote 2 spy novels, submitted them to many publishers, and got resoundingly rejected. But it's also the time when Microsoft came out with a little program called Word. And he took a look at the very first Word that came out, used it a little bit, found it odd that it couldn't do envelope labels. So he wrote a little utility to do envelope labels out of Word. And he put it out there on shareware for $10 a piece. And the way shareware worked back then is you'd write in and send your $10 in, and he'd send you a copy on a floppy disk. Well, few months into that, and 10 or 12 orders a week, gets a call from somebody who he didn't recognize the name of. And this guy says, "Hey, you mind if I write an article about your little utility?" Woody said, "Well, sure, why not? Go ahead." Turns out it was the editor of PC Magazine. He wrote the article. The week after that magazine dropped, he had an order for 10,000 copies of his utility. He immediately found someone else to fill those orders. Then a few months or a few weeks later, he gets another call, and it's from one of the publishers. The publisher says, "Hey, are you the Woody Leonhard that sent me these 2 spy novels?" And of course, Woody's thinking, "Oh boy, I sold one of my novels, or maybe both of them." And then the guy says, "Well, are you the one who wrote this utility for Word?" Or yeah, Word. And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, how would you like to write technical books for us?" He said, "Okay." And that's why the style of writing that Woody used in his technical books is not like a technical person. It's a spy novel technique coming through. So it produced a much different vibe, and eventually led to his career of 27 books, 28 books, 30,000 books, I don't know. But he authored a lot of books on Office and Word and several of the dummy series. But that wasn't enough. He gets another call. And the guy says, "You seem to know a lot about Word." Woody says, "Yeah, I think so." He says, "How would you like to be a level 3 consultant for Microsoft Word, working for Microsoft? Here's the deal." And this was in the 80s, I believe, no, 90s. Anyways, they said, "Here's the deal. We know you live out in the middle of nowhere as far as anyone from Microsoft was concerned. And what we'll do is when the help desk gets called, you get a level 1 person that half the time you know more than they do. Then they bump it up to a level 2 who covers a lot more detail. If they can't figure it out, it goes to a level 3. At the time, the level 3 consultant got $100 a call, plus they had to go to Seattle 4 times a year and teach level 2 folks. Well, since Mom and Dad lived in Seattle or south of Seattle in Tacoma, twist his arm to get a free trip up there 4 times a year. So of course he took it. And he was a level 3 consultant until he pissed him off. Because Woody would not hold back. He became a contributing editor to PC Magazine, and he wrote an article about what Word should have in it in its next version. Turns out Microsoft was putting that into their next version, but now that he published something about it and he was an employee, they couldn't patent it. So all of a sudden he became persona non grata and fired from Microsoft. But he went on to go ahead and start up Ask Woody and all the other things from there. Now, when he left Colorado, he had divorced Linda, and he and Justin ended up in Thailand. Right, Justin?
Yep, right here. Hello.
Okay, do you want to say anything at this point or later?
No, it's okay. I don't feel like I'd be strong enough to do so. You're doing
Okay.
wonderfully. Thank you, though.
Okay. So now we have Thailand, which a lot of folks in here are familiar with, or fairly familiar with. He was an established author by that time, and I've read and watched some of the blogs recently One in particular where they said it seemed like Woody fell off the edge of the earth when he moved there because they quit hearing so much from him. That's where he met Addie. Addie was working as a Starbucks manager, I believe, wherever she went. Yeah, okay. And they struck up a relationship, which continued through this year and continues actually. They got married, but before that, when did Woody set up the sandwich shops? Does anyone know? Okay. Woody had 3 sandwich shops, Americano style sandwich shops in Thailand on Phuket Island. And, okay. What was my question? Okay, you and I both. Okay. So anyways, like I said, they met at Starbucks. And Ed was working a bakery or owned a bakery at that point, Ed. Anyway, she's busy. Bottom line is, they got married after my dad had decided to move over there. Right. I got it reversed. Yes. My mom died. They had just moved fairly recently to Walla Walla. Dad didn't know anybody in Walla Walla except family. And I'm not going to go into that section. But he decided that he was going to move to Thailand to join Woody and Ed. And so several of us in this room helped empty that house out, did everything up because Dad went down to 2 suitcases to move to Thailand. And I think it was the best move he could have made. I think he lived longer and was happier over with it. The year after that, excuse me, year after that's when they got married. And I had the pleasure of going over and visiting 3 times to see. Initially, it was Ed, Woody, and Dad. And Woody, of course, wanted to show me around Patong Beach. Is that correct? Yes. So he took me to his favorite night spot, Rock City. They did hard rock. They had about 10 or 12 musicians that would get together in different groups for an hour set. Great, great music. And he made sure he went around and introduced me as his older brother, because he had been dyeing his hair. And of course, the wait staff knew Woody. Woody had been trying to recruit 2 of them to work in the sandwich shops. And when Woody was away, they came back around and said, you're a younger brother, right? I said, yeah, but let him think what he wants. So Ed would join us on a lot of the different places and shows that you can see around Phuket. Great place. I enjoyed myself. I got a chance to sit and watch old war movies with Dad. Ed took care of us wonderfully. The second trip, I got there and there were little fences in the middle of the floor. You know those dog gate things? Well, there was a pen made out of those, and this guy was in the middle of them. So life changed for them. And Dad started to decline. And for Ed and Woody the burden was pretty obvious, but there's not much help we could do from a distance. I was glad that Dad went over there. I was glad Dad got the time he did with people with his favorite Swedish meatballs and things like that. Woody always made sure he got to go, Dad got to go where he wanted to go or where he needed to go. Ad was always there helping with meals, helping with Dad as much as she could because Dad outweighed her. Then the third trip over, Dad had been fairly declined. I would help Woody get Dad into the bed or into the wheelchair, and he did not leave the apartment. Then Dad died. Woody and Ad arranged for everything that needed to be done. Thailand has some pretty interesting laws for someone who doesn't live in the country if they die, including is it Tibetan or Hindu ritual of burial. Anyways, you have to hire some monks and go through their ceremony before they'll release. And so they arranged all that and got Dad back here into the States for us. Then Woody did some research and he figured out that with all the money he's been making and all the taxes, US taxes, yeah, you pay US taxes when you're in Thailand. And he wasn't going to get the benefits he deserved for what he'd been paying. Because if he died over there, Ad and Andy would not receive a dime because of the way US laws were written. And Ad's sister happened to live in Tennessee. So, you know, what's 1 + 1? 2. Where are they going to move to if they move back to the States? That's a choice. That's not what they made, but that sounds too much like a bank. But they decided to be within close driving distance of Ad's sister. And they were welcomed into this community. Are you going to feel like talking at all? Okay. Do you want to do it now or in a little bit? I haven't got much more time here. Tennessee happens to be the end of it. One thing Beth told me about, by this time we had moved all over the place and we were in Atlanta, Georgia. So they took a direct flight, I think, to Atlanta. I don't remember. Anyways, Beth picked them up January 1st. 3 people from Thailand, dressed how? Shorts and short sleeves. And this is the year of Ice-A-Getting and Snow-A-Getting in Atlanta, where you had roads shut down and it was cold. So Woody wasn't always a forward thinker. They froze their butts off as they got in the car. I wasn't in town at the time. I was up in New Jersey. But we got them in here. They got up here and started a life together. The transition was a little difficult, but with the help of a lot of friends, many of whom are here, they have thrived. And Woody kept writing, sort of. He started to ask Woody, but he eventually diverged himself with that, even though it keeps its name. And if you want to know the inside scoop of any Microsoft product, go to askwoody.com. You'll find it there before it's anywhere else. So much for the sales pitch. Okay, Andy, I think it's your turn.
Okay. Hello there. Apologies for the dishevelment. So funny story I'd like to share is basically culture shock both one way and the other. So, you know, this was the first time that my dad, me, and my mom had ever been in the southern part of the US. And so I don't remember much from that time, but one of the things that I do remember was the first time we ever saw snow. So naturally, you'd imagine a Thai person has never seen snow. It's right about 10 degrees from the equator, so not much opportunity there. And we were going to DC, and it started snowing. Like, if I remember, it was 3-4 inches, and we got out of the car and we started playing in the snow. And I just remember that.
Mother support, but how can you see?
According to my paralegal lawyer, I'm gonna have to cut this conversation off for now, so bye y'all.
Okay. Yeah, that was a spark. Okay, Nancy, you got some vision?
So. In talking with Ad, you know, sometimes time heals, but not that fast. And there are emotions that are hard to say. So I agreed to give voice to Ad's feelings. She said, "To my beloved husband, Gregory F. Leonhard, or known by Woody Leonhard. I never imagined this day would come. The day I would have to say goodbye to the greatest man I've ever known. Woody wasn't just a faithful husband, a truly devoted and loving father. He was my best friend, my partner, my guide, my safe place, my home. He showed me what it truly means to be loved unconditionally, not just through words, but in how he lived every single day. Woody was one of a kind, and I can attest to that. A man with the kindest heart, generous, thoughtful, and always ready to help others without ever expecting anything in return. He gave freely his time, his wisdom, his compassion to everyone around him, near and far. Being with you, Woody, helped me grow in so many ways. Most importantly, you inspired me to become a better person, to be a good human being, to be kind to others. You brought out the best in me, so I feel honored to have walked this life with you. You believed in me, even in the moments when I couldn't believe in myself. You stood behind me with quiet strength and endless support. I'm so deeply grateful for the life you gave us, for the opportunities, for the comfort and the love. Because of you, your support, your faith in me, I am who I am today. My heart is broken that you've gone too soon. We had plans. We had so much life still waiting for us, and I am so sorry we didn't get the chance to live it all together. But I will forever cherish the time and every memory we did have. To honor your legacy, I promise this. I will do my very best to raise our son to be wise, kind, and strong, just like his father. I will make you proud. Though you're no longer here in body, your love is still with me, guiding me, comforting me, and reminding me of the love we shared. Thank you, Woody, for loving me in the way you did. I am forever grateful. Until we meet again, you are forever loved.
There, so I wanted to say something too. So, I mean, everybody in this room, I'd imagine, knows my dad. No. So I imagine some of them over here know him as a pretty good chauffeur and, you know, just my dad. Some of them here know him as a personal family member who'd be willing to drop everything to help out a person if they needed it. And some of these people here know him as a family friend who'd also be willing to help them at whatever cost it came at. He's the greatest inspiration that's ever come to me, whether before it happened, right now, or in my later life. He helped my mom and other members of my family so much, and I cannot even begin to describe what my life would be like if he were not here today. I hope he knows today that I will miss him, and that one day when I am successful, and I'm able to provide for everybody that I know, that he will be proud of me.
Hello. Smile, everybody, we celebrate life today, right? So, hello.
That's good.
So, here I am. Here we go. Okay, glad to see you all smile today. So we're celebrating Woody's life. And I know I might not know him as long as you guys knows him, but I know him for sure that Woody is the kindest man that walk on this planet. And one thing that I admire him is that he have only one tone in his life, like this, his voice. So one time we walked down the street in Thailand, and Andy was about, I think he's about 7 years old. And Andy was walk on the street, about to reach down and touch this dog on the street. And the dog doesn't look friendly. And Woody was right next to him. And Woody was like, Andy, be careful. This is not your dog. That's how he speak. And I was like, what? Andy, that is not your dog. Don't touch it. So, yeah, I saved Andy's life that day. See you smile. And what else? So every day when I go, I work not far from Addie's house. One time I just go there and I was like, Woody, open the door. Open the door. I gotta go in and, well, take my number 2 because I cannot take number 2 at my work. And he will open the door for me, let me in. When I'm done, I'm like, thanks, Woody, and I go out and leave. That's just something that's like funny. I used to think that if the house on fire, and what Woody gonna react? And all I can imagine is gonna be like, Andy, the house is on fire. Run. So that's how he lived his life. So, well, I don't have much to say other than I love him. And another one is that my son Liam over there, we have a hard time dealing with his homework, his math, and everything else. And who we call? Uncle Woody, because he have only one tone. He's kind. He doesn't yell. So he's like the perfect man for Liam Dixon over there, right, Liam? Yeah. So yeah, that's all I want to say. We love him, and we sad that he's gone, but I know that someday we all will meet there again. And he lives in the heart and our memory. So I'm glad I know him. That's all I want to say. I can't stay away from the video.
Thank you. I guess I only have one last story to mention, and that was, my chin's not good enough for you. Thank you. Actually, it's the guy who just stood up. He's a hero. Woody died driving a car, slumped back, foot on the gas pedal, full bore. Andy was sitting right next to him on the road. Andy managed to get his foot off the gas pedal and onto the brake while also pulling the wheel to get the car off the road. That's a 14-year-old. That's Woody's son. He saved other people, saved property. Car happened to stop 3 feet from a pole. That's Andy. That's Woody's son. And he called his mom, who was at a hotel, because Woody had just taken Andy to UGA to visit the campus. For a 14-year-old, they were already visiting campuses. That's Andy. He called his mom, whose phone had died. She was back at the hotel with Jasper, their dog. So he video called her on her iPad. Talked to her, calmly told her what the situation was, then hung up and called me, because I live in Georgia. They happen to be in Georgia. When we got up there, it was about 2 hours from the house. Andy had the police called. Andy had his dad on the way to the hospital. They wouldn't let Andy ride with him because he's a minor. The police had to arrange to pick up Addie and get Addie and Andy to the hospital. And by that time, he was dead. When we got up here, he had already died. But Andy was calm through all of it. So he broke down later. But that's Andy. That's also Woody. When the moment counts, he was strong. He paid attention to what needed to be done and didn't take it in until later. So Andy's a hero. We don't know how many lives he may have saved on the road. We don't know who at age 14 would have had a forethought to do the things he did. And he was calm through it. Most of it anyways. We won't mention the phone call. But I have a lot of faith and appreciation in Andy, because he showed a lot of traits of his dad. So now that we're all crying, I'm going to say this, we're over. No, hold on, we have someone else.
Good, so more folks, and anybody else who would like to speak, go ahead.
Yes, please come forward. Never mind what I just said. We're still running.
Pleasure. I'm standing in the right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Mike Dixon. We all have chapters in life, and I'm honored to have known Woody through this chapter. When my oldest son Brian went to Germany and met the beautiful Cherapan from Thailand and opened up our family to the wonderful world of Thailand, and through a Cherapan got to know her best friends, Ad, and got to know Woody, and just wonderfully watching you, Andy, grow up, and all the sleepovers and sporting events or school events. I was there pulling for you as much as I was pulling for my grandsons, Liam and Xander. So all I'm have to say is I miss Woody. Whenever we had family gatherings, wow. And by the way, Woody is 11 months older than me. So we were the two OGs. And every time I picked up something new about this fabulous man. I wish I knew all about Woody, what I've learned today. But I just want to say I miss Woody, and God bless him, God bless Ed, God bless Andy, and I miss Woody.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Justin, or Dustin.
I'd like to say something.
Sorry,
Get in the picture.
Jeff.
My name is Jeff. I am married to Penny, who is Ad's sister. I met Penny at one of Woody's sandwich shops in Patton in 2006. And she was so nice that I had to ask her out for a dinner. And so we went out. Very next morning, I get a call going, Woody and Ad need to meet you. They wanted to determine if I was a lunatic or a serial killer on the lam from the US, and Penny was in danger. They were very protective of her. So the next morning I went out to breakfast with Woody and Ad. That was when I first met them. And apparently I passed the audition because I'm still with Penny. I was friends with Woody from that first day. It didn't take long. We hit it off immediately on the audition. About a year later, Penny and I got married. Woody was my best man. A few months later, Woody and Ad tied the knot. I was his best man. We moved back to America, Tennessee. Woody and Ad moved back to America, to Tennessee. And we have just been family ever since. Our daughter growing up, she's a little bit older than Andy, but the kids have been growing up together. And it's just been the best 20 years of my life. And I thank Woody and Ad for that. And I will miss him.
Just Dustin.
Yes, can everybody hear me there?
Yes.
Okay, I have a bit of an interesting perspective in that I believe I'm about 18 years younger than Woody, and in such a long chain of children that our parents had, I really did not know him growing up as a youngster, a toddler, getting older, going to middle school even. But even though I thought of maybe Corey as my big brother, as time passed and we became quite a bit older, adult age for me, I started realizing some of the things that you're hearing today. Often when I'd hear about Woody, it would be how easy he could befriend people, how friendly he was to others, how he would just drop what he was doing to go help somebody if they needed help. And I think that resonates through what I never knew from him as a youngster, but came to know as an adult. Our trip to Phuket, my family got to visit, fortunately, when my dad was still alive. And it was very much like what you're hearing here. Ad, Woody both would take care of us, any kind of food, any kind of needs. They're very quick to just drop whatever they're doing and take care of us. But if I could try and sum up Woody simply without knowing him as a youngster, but reflecting back, I think he was someone that's very humanistic, and he is someone that's very humanistic. It's a quality we can hold in our hearts for the rest of our lives. And Andy, I think as Corey alluded to, your actions that day, you really are a hero. You're a hero for Ad. You're a hero for all of us. You're a hero for Woody. Even though you may have lost him in that moment here, I think you gave him a gift at the very end that he will always appreciate where he is now. And my family gives every bit of strength we can to you, to Ad, to Justin, and to all of us out there and all of you out there that have been connected by Woody with his friendship, his kindness. And hopefully we all can grow a little bit in that direction, knowing those qualities of him that I think we're all reflecting on now. And I don't have a lot to say other than I don't know if fun is the right word, but it's just really encouraging to see the values that people value in Woody that I didn't get to discover until later, but that I very much appreciate. And I see in Ad, and I see in others, Andy, his quick reactions, things like that. So I just wanted to tell everybody, take care, Thank you very much, Nancy, for what you've done to put this together. Corey, especially, and all the rest of you. I very much appreciate it. We appreciate it here. I wish I could have been there, but our timing didn't quite turn out. So thank you, everybody. And Woody, thank you. That's all.
Chris?
Thank you, Uncle Dustin.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me? I'm not sure.
Just
Hello.
fine.
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Thank you very much, Dustin. Hi, Justin, Andy, and Kunad. And thank you very much, Corey, for this. This is for me. It's been beautiful. I got to know Woody only after he landed in Phuket. Guy turns up, calls himself Woody Leonhard, says he wants to write for our newspaper, the Phuket Gazette at the time, write the computer column, which I was writing at the time. And hell yeah, we sat down and had one conversation, and that was it from there. The things that I love to remember is when Kunad and Kunwoody started their sandwich shops, very quickly, Kunwoody had these computer classes, these workshops for a lot back then, older people who simply don't know how to use a computer. And here is Woody every Sunday giving his knowledge and his time freely to strangers. And that was my first hint to understanding Woody, and just how beautiful and kind and generous he really was. Just that simple act, and just regular, freely, and never. My benchmark for Kunwoody is he's probably the nicest guy I've ever met in my life, and I really hold that dearly. Number one that struck me with Kunwoody, he never swore. I'm Australian, so that's kind of weird. But he never had a bad word to say about anyone that I heard about. And there was one time we were over at his house at Patong, and I'm not sure what we were working on. I'm sitting to the left of him, he's on the computer, and he starts humping and harumphing. And I'm kind of confused because I'm trying to understand what I'm witnessing. And then I look at Woody, and I ask Woody, are you angry? And he just turns to me and says, Chris, I am furious. And that was it. That was my only hint that, that Woody was angry. That's how much he did not, these emotions did not spill over. The rest was just kindness, warmth, happiness, and his presence was always wonderful and calming. He was Kunwoody. And before I forget, the other thing that's running through my mind, there's also there's so much more to Kunwoody. I like Corey mentioning Rock City. I was just leaving a meeting one night, bumped into Woody on the street, and he says, "Hey, come in here for a drink." And I drink, but he said, "Let's come in here and listen to music." And it was this hard rock music, which is very surprising for me. And it's when I learned that Woody likes the sound of a guitar. And we just sat there for about an hour and a half, not even talking, just listening to the music. That's a lovely memory for me. The last thing I'd like to leave you with, I'm going to drop you a link. Kunad would probably remember this. There was also the other side of Woody, Action Woody, when a guy broke into their house in Patong. So I'm going to drop a little link when Woody called me up one day. I'm at the newspaper and says, "You're not going to believe what happened last night." And he chased a man who had entered their house in Patong. And Woody ended up throwing a butcher's knife at him. He missed by a mile. It was just a message, but I'm going to drop that link in there. Kunwoody salutes Patong's finest. So you can enjoy that to complete the picture of Kunwoody. It's just a beautiful, complete man. And my heart and best wishes go to Kunad, Kunandi, Corey, your whole family. And thank you very much for this. It's nice to see that Kunwoody lives on. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Hello. Just wanted to go and jump in if it's okay for me to do so. Um, this is more directed over for Andy than anyone else. Directly after Woody passed away, I tried to go in contact. By the way, if my voice starts breaking, let me know and I'll try to be more coherent. Immediately after Woody died, I tried to contact Ad. Andy was the first person I talked to when I went and when I found out about what happened. Regardless of all the context to what's going on, it's very important, Andy, looking back with everyone here, you did the absolute best that you could. There's absolutely no doubt in any there's no doubt in anyone's mind here that you sorry, I'm sorry. There's absolutely no doubt in the minds of anyone here that you did the absolute best that you could. And looking back on everything that's going on, never doubt for a second about what's going on. At least going on, I know that probably for a brother, it's not the right thing in this context to say it, but I'm very proud of you for what you did on that day. I want you to go and remember that with everyone else that's going on here, you're loved. And you did a damn good job that day. Anyhow, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Justin. You guys have
Yes, you
seen
do.
me enough.
Thank you, Corey.
Well, if no one has anything additional, there's a few technical things I want to mention. One is that Lisa made a wonderful slideshow, and it is on YouTube and remains on YouTube for you to enjoy. And that is a family.
At Leonhard family, sorry.
That's it, at Leonhard family. And I will pass around the password and information. So if other people want to post out other Leonhard family events and things, be more than happy to give you access. And this session is also being recorded for YouTube, and it will also remain out there for you to access. But I think the slideshow is going to be better because those had pictures I've never seen. So.
I'll run it again when we're all done.
Okay, so people can watch it.
Yes.
I have a few words to say, but she can speak on my behalf. She can speak on the behalf.
Ad has more to say.
Okay, she wants to say thank you for coming, and she really appreciate your honest life, and to support me and Andy to our family, who is a good way.
So is Andy. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
There is food break as usual, but it's going to be a nice mix. So I encourage you to go try something you haven't had before.